.762mm full metal jacket.
Oh, where's my specs? Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Welcome to another Casio review. 2 Casios in 1 week. What a treat. But very much one from each end of Casio's catalogue. I looked at the A168 for $18.50 earlier on this week. Today it's the turn of the full metal square G-Shock. Now these things caused a bit of a stir when they were released mid last year. Not least of which because of the price tag associated with them. I didn't buy one at the time, but I know a man who did. German Melburnian expat and big supporter of the channel, JP, and he loaned me this one in for review. Big thanks again to you, JP. You may have seen his Zin, his Samurai, or his Cocktail Time previously on the channel, and he very kindly sent this Casio Square full metal G-Shock in for me today. He's got a fantastic watch collection. You should check out his Instagram, JP_Melbs. I will leave a link to that one in the description of the video. Now I've reviewed a bunch of watches on the channel so far. I'm fortunate enough to have a number arrive in my mailbox every week, and I can't remember another watch that I've put it on my wrist for the first time and it's made me grin as much as this one. Let's flip the camera and have a look at it. Let's start, as I often do being a good Scotsman, by talking about money. There was a bit of a speculative bubble on these ones when they came out mid last year, trading upwards of $1,000. However, it looks like demand has not outstripped supply and they're readily available. Here's one on Amazon.com for $595 US. You can pick these up today, no problem at all. That does sit in stark contrast to the $43.99 they're currently asking for the base model 5600. I will leave links to both of those as always in the description of the video. So what do you get for your 600 US? Well, you certainly get slightly more upscale packaging than you do with the base model and a whole bunch of paraphernalia in the bottom as well. Hang tag, warranty regulations, and a whole bunch of other little bits and pieces, including a big fat instruction manual for the module 3459. But never mind the boring bits of paper, we're here for the watch today, and there it is, and it just looks fantastic. Definitely a little bit of Terminator about this one, with all that shiny metal surrounding a familiar face. And just look at it. I'm well used to reviewing Casios that are made of plastic but trying to look like they're made of metal, and finally my chance to review one that is actually made of metal. So same proportions and dimensions, roughly anyway, as the regular G-Shock 5600. I've only ever owned 2 G-Shocks. Both of them have been this kind of classic 5600 square shape because, apart from anything else, they're the smallest. 43mm in diameter at its widest point, 12¼ thick. Now lug tip to lug tip between my thumbnails there is 50mm, but have a look at that articulated bracelet, or not particularly articulated bracelet. I'll talk about that a little later on. Lug width, forget about it. You are not going to be changing this one out in a hurry. And weight, 155 grams. So it's coming in bang on that kind of Rolex Submariner sports watch sweet spot at 150 grams. Who knew from a Casio? So let's have a look, if we can, at some of these delicious metallic finishes. Fantastic vertical brush on the flat bezel surrounding the screen protecting surface there. Mixture of brushed and polished. We move on to polish on the lugs, polish on the side, and then back to that same vertical brushing on the side of the case. Now the pushers on these ones are still recessed as they are on all G-Shocks. There's a little bit more meat to them though. They are easier to engage than on some other models, but there is a little bit of an abrupt transition between high polish and brush, going from the case to the links of the bracelet. Bracelet is a very good one though. Nice and flexible, very comfortable in operation, and actually there's a little mini spring bar in each of these links. So to change the size of the bracelet, you just pop the bougie on, you just pop that into one of these holes there, depresses the spring bar, and it pops open. As simple as that, and you're far less likely to scratch these links changing the bracelet than you would be if it was a push pin or even a screw. Kind of ingenious little system this. I'm not sure why more companies don't use that spring bar system. The clasp itself is also a good one. As you can see here, JP, a man who likes to use and abuse his watches. Big thumbs up to that. If you remember his Zin review, it was fairly well kicked in. So this G-Shock has certainly not a safe Jenny. This one has been out and about. A couple of scratches there. Clasp is a little basic, but you've got a reasonable level of micro adjust, and obviously it's a decent quality milled clasp, as you'd expect for 600 US bucks. Now, popping a link to show you a lovely kind of anthracite coloured stainless steel high polish case pack. This being a Casio, they're not shy about slapping the spec sheet pretty much anywhere and everywhere. We've got the specs on the back and the front today. So screw down case pack, giving this one 200 meters of water resistance, as is the standard with all of these square Gs, made in Japan. And you can see the Bluetooth logo there. This one is actually capable of connecting to a G-Shock app on your phone. Doesn't do an awful lot though. I haven't bothered because this isn't my watch, but as far as I'm aware, you can set the time and you can set various alarms on it. It's got 4 alarms in total, this one. Tough solar, it's a solar and multi-band 6. So if you are in a country where you can connect to the atomic clock, I believe only the UK, USA, Japan and various parts of China, this one will dial in 4 times a day, so the watch is always at the right time. Unfortunately, we do not have that capability here in Australia, so JP has paid a little bit more for this one for that unfortunately he's not going to be able to take advantage of that feature. And back to the front, and yes, this spec sheet is all over the front of this watch as well. I must say, I do really like the engraved, the etched protection and G-Shock into that bezel. It looks pretty posh. So Casio, tough solar, Bluetooth, multi-band, etc. And you've got that classic brick pattern around the inner screen there. So the module on this one isn't all that advanced. It doesn't do an awful lot that the regular $45 G-Shocks don't do. World time, now JP lives in Melbourne, so he's got the world time set to Melbourne as well there. Alarm, and I believe I can cycle through these 1, 2, 3, 4 alarms with a snooze function. And then you're back to a stopwatch. One of my favourite features on these G-Shocks is the fact that you can take a, whoops, now where do I go? There we are, start and stop there. You can run a stopwatch, but you've always got the correct time, the kind of home time up there in a little small box in the corner. I used to wear my old G when I was doing endurance sports events. I would always have one eye on my time and one eye on the time, if you see what I mean. Stop there and reset, and then on to the next function, which is a countdown timer, and then we're back to the time. So for 600 bucks, you don't get an awful lot of jazzy features, but you do get this stunning metallic exterior. And we also have this gorgeous kind of ice white backlight available at the touch of the top right hand pusher. Press it once and it fades in, glows for a couple of seconds, then fades out. Looks really classy. You can't hold it on though. You can't just press the button and get a continuous light. You're stuck with that fade in, fade out cycle, but a little bit of class there from Casio with that one, I think. And there it is on wrist, and doesn't it look fantastic? Really kind of otherworldly. I love the little circular indents in the bracelet links there, complementing the 2 kind of classic indents on the bottom end of the case. Just fantastic. 43mm, my 7-inch wrist. I think this is a good size. I haven't really ventured into the really big G-Shocks, as mentioned earlier on. These classic square ones, they've been making this shape since 1983, I believe it was the first ever G-Shock. So I think the original is sometimes the best, and I haven't strayed too far from this design myself. Fantastic looking watch. Zoomed out for perspective, you're not going to miss this one in a hurry with all of that metal. Just looks pretty radical, but as I said, I put it on and a massive smile erupted on my face. It just made me very happy, this watch. And that's it outside, glinting away in the Sydney summer sunshine. It really does look sensational. Wears pretty well on wrist. You know, it's a big watch at 155 grams, but carries its weight quite well. Conforms reasonably to my 7-inch wrist. In fact, let me switch wrists and I'll show you it on my slightly larger right wrist. I actually think the watch wears better on a slightly large wrist because of that kind of first link not being particularly articulated. I think it reminds me a lot of the Spectre Phantom, the kind of AP Royal Oak style. They do tend to suit a slightly larger wrist. I reckon you might have difficulties with this one. It might bobble around a little bit if you have got a 6.5-inch wrist. I would definitely suggest trying one of these on in the shop before you commit to spending $600 on one if you were ordering online, for example. I think it feels better on my larger right wrist than it did on my left. 7 inches, probably just about okay, but I think you might have sizing issues if your wrists are smaller than that. So sizing then may be an issue for some people, not as easy to wear if you've got slightly smaller wrists because of the kind of drape there, because it doesn't drop straight down onto your wrist. So just something to be aware of, and not exactly fully featured for $600. I mean, you can buy a cheap Chinese smartwatch for 30 bucks. I may well have done just that. And you get a damn sight more features. Perhaps Casio should be looking at putting some kind of fitness tracker or heart rate monitor or something in this one. If they could manage to integrate that into this classic square shape, I think they would have an absolutely killer watch on their hands. And for $600, you know, JP wears his, there's a number of scratches on here, but are you really going to be comfortable beating this watch? I mean, you've paid an awful lot of money for something that looks quite incredible. I'd be reluctant to wear it as a beater, and Casio G-Shocks are the ultimate beater. So you see what I'm saying? You've got a beater watch that you can't actually beat. I guess this is for collectors. This is for people who just love the look. Perhaps for G-Shock collectors who've got a number of these things, this is going to be the one at the very top of their collection. It's not going to be the one that they put on their wrist to do the gardening or do some work on the car at the weekend, because it is a little bit precious with that metal finish. But just a stunning watch to look at. Fantastic the way that they've taken the classic 30-year-old, 35-year-old design now and then brought it into the 21st, 22nd century with this all-metal finish. It really is a very entertaining watch to look at and a very comfortable one to wear. It carries itself very well indeed. Will I be buying one of these? I'm not so sure. I think for me the essence of the G-Shock range lies with the cheaper models. I could be tempted to something that fits in between, perhaps a kind of solar model or a blackout one, but I can definitely see the appeal in these. As a registered Casio file, I definitely see why JP and many others got so excited about these ones when they came out. So there you have it, full metal G-Shock. Big thanks to JP again for loaning me this one in for review, and my goodness, is it a fun watch to wear on your wrist. Not sure that I'll be joining the queue to buy one of these pieces quite yet. I think that the G-Shock, the essence of G-Shock lies in the $40 pieces rather than these $500, $600 pieces, but I repeat what I said in the intro, so much fun. And if you love Casio, there's a very strong argument for picking up one of these. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.